Freyja's questline is one of the main questlines you can go through in Shadow of the Erdtree, and I'm going to go through every step by step of how you can get her full armor, the unique shield that she gives you during her questline, and how to fully complete this questline as you go through the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. It's more straightforward than others, so let's get into it. Now to kick off this questline, just like every other NPC you'll come across inside of Shadow of the Erdtree and Elden Ring itself, you need to go and find her for the very first time, which will be at the very first cross you interact with inside of Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Now just like every other NPC questline, what you always want to remember is that you have to exhaust the dialogue of the NPC until they start repeating what they say, and this is no different for Freyja. And once you exhaust her dialogue at the very first cross, the 3 paths cross site of Grace, it's not really a lot that goes on inside of her questline until you get to the Shadow Keep later on in this video. But leading up to that point where you interact with her at the Shadow Keep, you can summon her at a few different boss fights if you really want to, just something that you can do until you get her questline progressed. This is where you need to pay attention to when you get to the Shadow Keep. The Shadow Keep, when you first enter for the very first time, an event is going to happen that's going to cause every single questline of every single NPC to move to its next step. When this event occurs, make sure to make your way back to where you met Freyja for the very first time. She'll still be there until you interact with her, and obviously once again you have to go through every single dialogue option that she has and exhaust it until she starts repeating herself. She's basically going to tell you what she plans to do, what her past was with General Radahn, and that she's going forward but not fully sure what she's going to be doing. It's not a lot of information to go off of, but all you have to know is that you will eventually see her back at the Shadow Keep in a very particular section of the Shadow Keep. And thankfully, as you progress through the Shadow Keep, you'll eventually come across a very particular site of Grace that will put you right next to Redmane Freyja inside of the Shadow Keep, so you don't have to keep worrying about where her location is. Showing you exactly how to get to this location would spoil a lot of the Shadow Keep, so I'm not going to do that for you. All you need to do is make sure you go through the entire storehouse section as thoroughly as possible. Thankfully, you'll also hear her talking to herself, so it'll make it easier to find her actual location. When you do finally get to this location, you'll again hear her talking to herself and being frustrated about a tablet that she just simply can't decipher because she's missing certain information that Sir Ansbach readily had available and wishes that she had talked to him. Thankfully, Ansbach's very close. He can be found on the first floor of the storehouse after you break the seal inside of the Shadow Keep, that big event I was telling you about earlier on inside of this video. So from the storehouse first floor side of Grace, follow the pathing I'm showing you, and we're basically just going to try and run past all the different people that are jumping out of the sides, all the different mages throwing fireballs at you, and into this very particular room that's going to have a large table with the skeleton on top, and you'll find Sir Ansbach sitting in a corner reading to himself. Now depending on what you've picked up through the Shadow Keep to help Sir Ansbach's questline, like getting the secret right scroll, you might have more than one options, but what you want to pick for Freyja's questline is tell Sir Ansbach about Freyja's situation. Make sure you go through all the dialogue for this particular choice about Freyja with Ansbach to help progress to the next section of Freyja's questline. Because as you keep talking to Ansbach, he just rambles on and on, as you'll start to notice, but he will eventually give you a letter that you need to go back to Freyja and hand over to her to help progress her to the next stage and give you a particular item. A little bit of caution on this: if you progress Ansbach's questline to where he leaves the Shadow Keep, you will no longer be able to get this letter from him to give to Freyja to progress her questline, so make sure you do Freyja's questline first before you progress her Ansbach questline. Now with all that being said, make your way back to Freyja with the letter and you can hand it over to her to progress the conversation around Freyja and her backstory in general. Once again, talk with her until you progress all of her dialogue and she starts repeating herself once again, or until you get the item in question. Now this item in question that I keep talking about is actually going to be a part of her entire outfit that you won't get any other way unless you do this part of her questline. It's actually going to be her shield. It should also be mentioned that if you do not give her the letter, she will remain here until either you give her the letter or you get to the end of the game, which I'll be covering here in just a second. Here's the stats for her shield. It's nothing super crazy. It does have a unique Ash of War, as you might expect by an NPC, but outside of that, it's nothing that's really super crazy unless you want to complete her entire outfit at the end of this video. Now after the Shadow Keep interaction, you won't see Freyja until you get to the Cleansing Chamber Anteroom at the very end of the game. If this is your first time going through the DLC, I recommend you getting here and enjoying the fights, because I'm going to spoil a little bit of information about it here in just a second, because this is also going to be the room where you go and fight Letta and all of her allies in one big out brawl. No matter what you do throughout the game, Freyja is always going to be on Letta's side, so you're always going to end up fighting against her inside of this big brawl. Just keep that in mind, and this is where you're going to end up finalizing her entire questline as well. Now I'm not going to spoil the fight itself so you guys can enjoy it for the first time if you haven't done so already, but here's where you're going to actually be able to get Freyja's great sword and her entire outfit. It'll be very obvious where she is once you finish this brawl and win this brawl, because she's just going to be taking a knee right next to where you get transported back to your world. As you'll notice through her questline dialogue, she always looks forward to fighting fighting strong opponents, and this is a way that she wanted to go out, so it's kind of a nice poetic ending. And if you followed every step that I showed you inside of this questline, including giving her the letter, you'll be able to have this entire outfit, which looks absolutely awesome in my opinion. And having that unique shield that perfectly goes along with this entire outfit makes it that much better in my opinion as well. Now unfortunately, unlike other NPC armor sets in Shadow of the Erdtree, there isn't any special uniqueness to it. It doesn't boost any of your stats whatsoever, which is unfortunate, but still nonetheless is a cool armor set. Here's that somewhat unique shield badge that you can see from the actual shield in this questline, and here is the unique Ash of War for Freyja's greatsword as well. Again, nothing super crazy, but still a fun combination to use nonetheless. The armor itself is also nothing that's really super crazy in terms of stats, so it's more of a medium weight armor than it is heavy armor, as you could probably imagine with the fact she doesn't have full leg armor, but overall that's everything you can get inside of Freyja's questline. It's a fun questline to follow. It's not as in-depth as says maybe Ansbach or Theolier's full questline, but overall it is still something you can go through and enjoy inside of Shadow of the Erdtree, and I highly recommend you go through it. If you found this walkthrough guide very helpful, please let me know by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. That way I know you did find it helpful, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.